Welcome to our next edition of the Foundation Speaker Series. My name is Michelle Warofka. Today, I'm excited to spend some time with Mr. Eric Shannon as he uncovers his journey into entrepreneurship. Eric is the founder and owner of Big Barker, a company he started in 2012. Big Barker is the creator and manufacturer of the world's first therapeutic mattress, uniquely engineered and proudly made in the USA to keep dogs youthful for longer and bring older dogs back to their best. A recognized leader in the pet industry by Pet Age magazine, Eric is a proud recipient of their 40 Under 40 award. Welcome, Eric. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure. Now, let's jump right into it here. You have a fascinating story to share. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, you own a company that manufactures dog beds. So, I imagine you grew up with dogs and have always been a dog lover, right?
No. I was actually scared to death of dogs for most of my life growing up. My mother never had pets growing up. My father never had pets growing up. So, we never had pets in the house. So, I remember I'd be walking to the bus stop not even as a little kid. I mean, as a high school student, I'd be walking to the bus stop and I could see a little Pomeranian yapping and I would cross the street just worried it was going to sink its teeth into my legs. So, I was scared to death of dogs until I was probably about 25.
That right. Wow. Yeah. So how did you become a pet lover? Tell us a little story about that.
I don't even know. It was one day, I just decided I wanted to get a puppy. I don't know why that happened. I just was thinking about puppies and I said, you know what, if I got a chocolate lab puppy, the bite probably wouldn't hurt too bad. So let me just get a puppy and see what happens. So that was it. And then I just fell in love with dogs right when I got her. Name was Phyllis. She was a chocolate lab that I got when I lived in California. So yeah, it just kind of all went uphill from there.
You became a dog lover.
I did. Yeah, just spending time at the dog park every day. It was just so much fun. And I really liked everything about it.
Okay, so tell us about, so you said Phyllis was your first dog that you had and have grown to, become even more of a dog lover. And tell us about maybe an instance where you met a special dog.
Sure. So that's Hank. So Hank was my main man. I got Hank, I was about 20. I just moved back from California and it was kind of a lonely time in my life. I was between sort of career changes and I didn't really know what was going on. And at that time I got this puppy named Hank who was he looked kind of like a hyena. He was a weird looking dude. When I got him, they said he'd probably be maybe 40, 50 pounds, but he ended up growing into this 92 pounds monster. He was a big guy, scared of everything. He was he was a character, but he was diagnosed with hip dysplasia when he was a puppy, which I wasn't really familiar with back then. I just remember I came home from work and he's hopping on 3 legs and I took him to the vet and they said, oh, he has hip dysplasia. It's not normal to get it at this age, but he has it. So that was just a health issue that he dealt with his whole life. And that kind of indirectly led me into the world of dog vets.
Okay, so you had taken him to the vet and they discovered that he had hip dysplasia, and you said at a very early age. I think he was just 9 months old. So you were on a mission then to solve this problem, and in doing so, you started your first company in 2006 called Oh My Dog Supply, right?
Yeah. So what happened was, so the vet with the hip dysplasia, the vet's like, well, look, he's going to have this his whole life. There's no cure for hip dysplasia. It's just how bad is it going to get is the question. And the vet said, there's 3 things you can do. The first is keep their weight down. The second thing is really limit the high impact exercise. So don't be throwing tennis balls for hours every day. And then the third thing the vet said was just to get him a good bed. And that was, I didn't run to a laboratory to invent a dog bed. It didn't work like that. It was just something I became aware of, that I needed to get him a good bed. And I remember going to pet stores and pressing on these beds and thinking, is this a good bed? Is that going to, keep the pressure off the hip? And I remember just not being overly thrilled with anything I found at the stores. And that's when I started researching dog beds and, is this something other people are having a problem finding? And at that point I was, my job, I had switched careers. I was in e-commerce. I was e-commerce director for this catalog company. So I knew a little bit about search engine marketing and search engine optimization back then. And I noticed that, wow, there's like, at that time, 60,000 people a month looking on Google for dog beds. But when I go online, I don't really see anything different than I find at the pet stores. So what would that look like if I could find better dog beds for all these people that are already looking for them, and then just sort of figure out how to do this search engine thing? Would that be a business? Would that make any money? And that's what led me to making the first company. I just happened to meet a guy at a conference, this guy named Andrew. We sat next to each other. And on the last day, he's like, so what are you doing on the side outside of your job? Because he was an e-commerce director too. And I'm like, this is going to sound weird, but I really want to do something with dog beds. And he says, oh, that's interesting. Tell me why. And I told him the same thing I just said to you. And he's like, well, why haven't you done it? I said, well, because I think I know how to do the marketing side of it, but I don't know how to find products like that. I don't know how to build that kind of website. And the guy starts laughing. He's like, I can't believe you said this, because I've spent the last month going to pet supply trade shows all over the country. And he was doing more than just beds, but he was doing like bowls and feeders. He's like, I got all the supplier relationships. I even built the website, but I don't know how to do the marketing part of it. So we just decided to just see what we could do. And that was the beginning of Oh My Dog Supply. Now, back then we were just trying to make a couple bucks. We thought, hey, if we can make a couple bucks on the side, that could be pretty cool. But within a year, we ranked #1 on Google for the phrase dog beds, along with many other things. And we just didn't need jobs. So we quit our jobs and decided to try to grow that into a real company. And we did. And we ran that from 2006 to 2012 is when I sold my portion of it to him and his wife. But yeah, at a point we had, I think, 8 employees, some here in Philly, some in San Francisco. And that's really where I learned, that was my first real dose of entrepreneurship.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah.
Talk about being at the right place at the right time and meeting up with him, and all the stars aligning. And
yeah,
wow,
exactly. Yeah.
That is really cool, neat. And so you said you ultimately then in the end, you ended up selling off your part to him and his wife, and you decided that it was time to move on to something else.
Mm-hmm. Right. So Oh My Dog Supply was an online retailer. So what we were doing was going to trade shows, trying to find really cool products you couldn't find at the pet store, and then mainly doing search engine marketing and some other forms of online advertising. And after doing it for 6 years, I really felt like I wanted to start a brand of my own. And the obvious, because when you're starting a company or a brand, like what you're trying to do is solve a problem for somebody. So the first company was more about, hey, I know that people are looking for dog beds. I know that dog beds in stores are junk. Can I help these people find something better? And that's why that first company ended up being successful, because we identified a problem and we executed on it. The next step was, well, we've sold a lot of dog beds over the years. And one thing that I noticed was that people were buying more than one dog bed. And I thought that was really weird when I was looking at the customer data. I thought, why would somebody buy a really expensive dog bed more than once? Is it because they got new furniture and they want a different color? Is it because their dog chewed it up? And I didn't know the answer. So I just started calling some customers on the phone saying, hey, this is Eric. You bought a dog bed from us, more than one dog bed from us. Could you tell me more about that? And what we heard is, oh yeah, well, the other one just flattened out, or the other one just fell apart. And I heard that many times and never connected the dots before, because my own dog, Hank, he had flattened dog beds in the past, but it never occurred to me that that was happening to everybody with a big dog. So after researching it, why are these dog beds falling apart? And the answer was pretty simple. It's because most of them are made with cheap Chinese foam that's not really meant to hold a 80-pound Labrador on it for 8 hours a day, or, God forbid, a 200-pound Mastiff laying on it all day long. So that was identifying the problem that existed in the dog bed market. And from there it was, okay, now how do I fix this problem? And then how do I communicate that to people? And that was 2012. So that's how it started.
Wow. So then Big Barker sprung from there then, right?
Yep.
There we go. That's how it happened. Wow. Very cool. Mm-hmm. And so not one, but 2 businesses. Eric, did you ever think when you were sitting back in high school back in the day that you would ever open up your own business?
I don't think, maybe, I don't know. Like back when I was in high school, for some reason, I assumed I would be the CEO of Verizon. I don't know why, but it was always Verizon.
Okay.
Didn't really have an affinity for them. I don't know. That's just kind of what I thought would happen. And I just assumed I would be doing the corporate rise up the ladder sort of situation. I was always interested in business, and I was always running kind of small little businesses when I was in high school. But no, I never thought it would end up like it did. And I'm really glad it did. I mean, I can't imagine having it any other way at this point.
Awesome. Wonderful. And now, a lot of times when people think about running a business, oh my goodness, it's going to cost a lot of money and I'm going to have to find investors. How did you start your business?
Well, that's the thing. Like, a lot of times people assume that you have these companies and you needed to, save up money for your whole career to do it, or get these big loans from banks, or raise money from investors. And yeah, you do in some cases, but in my case, like Oh My Dog Supply, we started that with like $8,000, and that was to do some initial advertising, hire some web designers. Like, that was it. It was somewhere around that amount of money. And then that at its peak, I think the largest that company got was about $2 million in revenue a year, all off of $8,000 initial investment, which is nuts when you think about it. Big Barker was the same way. I don't remember the exact amount. It might have been less than $8,000, but I started it with, the guy who I was working with to get the first batch made. I just placed a small initial inventory order, and I hired a photographer, and I did a lot of the other work myself. Like, our first website was just so hideous, but I did it myself because I wasn't sinking a ton of money into it in the beginning. And Big Barker has done, 30+ million in sales, all off that original $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. So you don't have, that's what's called bootstrapping. You don't need a ton of money to start a business. If you have a good idea that solves a real problem and you can execute it without tons of money, it is possible. I know tons of people with similar businesses like mine who all are doing, multiple $1 million a year in revenue, but didn't raise millions of dollars to do it.
Wow. Fascinating. That is just neat. Wow. Now, tell us, what was your educational pathway? You went to high school. Where did you go after high school, and what was your major? And
well, my mother would probably say I had a very bad educational pathway. I wasn't really that connected to school. I actually did pretty poorly in high school and in the beginning in college too. I didn't have any solid interests that I tied to my education. So I went to college because I thought I had to go to college. I started off at Fairfield University up in Connecticut, and I just wasn't that into it. And then so I left there, and then I went to community college for a semester, never finished my classes. And then it wasn't until I got really interested in the stock market, and this would have been the late 90s when the stock market was like going like this. And I thought, that's really interesting. So I started learning more about like, what does a stock analyst do? I got a part-time job at a mutual fund company, and then I rededicated myself to getting into school. So I ended up graduating with a finance degree, and did pretty well once I finally went back. But really, I couldn't really say that what I went to school for is all that relevant to what I do now. However, I still think it was valuable to do, because I wouldn't have gotten the experience that I did in e-commerce. I wouldn't have been hired without that degree. And before that, I was, had a couple other jobs in banking, which didn't directly help, but all that stuff does. So it was a very roundabout educational path that doesn't really connect directly to what I do now, but it was worth doing.
But looking back, would you have done it differently? Would you have majored in something else?
No, I wouldn't have done differently, because the reason I got really dedicated, and it wasn't just that I was interested in the stock market, is because I had to leave and work full time. And it wasn't until I did that, I thought, wow, I'm really not making much money at all. And there really is not a path to make more unless I figure out what I want to do. And part of that was going back to school. So I think the experience I got, and even though that job I was in when I was working full time wasn't the greatest job in the world, I was in a management training program, and they put us through some really great courses. Like, I remember there was a Dale Carnegie leadership class they put us through. So if anybody has ever heard of a book called, it's got a goofy title. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And we did an entire course on that book. And I think I got more from that course in that job than I did in anything in college. So no, I wouldn't have done it differently because the experience was super, super helpful.
Well said. And that's a perfect segue into my next question. It's speaking about, other opportunities and experiences. If I may share with our viewers here, Eric, when you were in high school, you attended one of our foundation's programs called Pennsylvania Free Enterprise Week. As you look back on your week at Pennsylvania Free Enterprise Week, do you think that experience helped to kind of set the foundation for both of the businesses that you started?
Yeah, it definitely did. So for PFEW, for me, I was 15 years old. I was actually there for my 16th birthday. So I was 15 when it started, 16 when it ended. And it was really one of the most valuable experiences to me through that period of my life. Part of it was because there is the business competition aspect to it. I was so into it, and I was working so closely with another group of students, and we were just such good friends for a long period of time after it. So it was one of the first things I ever got fully invested in as not a school activity, but a learning activity. It was really fascinating to me and really, really fun. Plus just the aspect of being on a college campus, away from home, living in a dorm with all these other students. It was really kind of life-changing for me at that point. And I never forgot it.
Oh. Well, thank you for saying that and for the kind words. And truly, Eric, you have been such a huge advocate and supporter of PFEW, and you make a point to give back to PFEW. I know you donate, you provide sponsorships for students who want to participate. You volunteer each summer. You come in and for an entire week, take a week away from your business and family and friends to mentor students from all over the state of Pennsylvania. So can't thank you enough, Eric, for your support and really the your belief in our mission and what we do. So
yeah, you're welcome.
We couldn't do it without you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. So as we wrap up our time here today, I wish we had more time to talk, Eric. I mean, a great story, a successful business. We wish you all the best with your business. And, we appreciate the wonderful tips and advice that you've shared with our viewers here today. So thanks so much for joining us here. One thing, though, before I let you go, any final tips that you might give to a student as they are in their senior year, they're maybe not sure what they want to major in or what they want to do, some final tips that will help them to succeed in whatever path they want to get into?
Go with what you're interested in, not necessarily what's expected of you. And that comes down to not just what your major is, but also where you go to school. If you don't think that's, like, my biggest regret is that I went to a school like Fairfield University, which cost a lot of money when I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I do deeply regret that I did that and racked up that tuition bill. I should have done something much different back then. But go with your gut and what you're legitimately interested in.
Love it. Awesome. Wonderful advice. Thank you. And I'm sure you've planted some seeds for some future entrepreneurs out there, and it have inspired many. So thanks again so much.
Thanks
Eric.
for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye. Finally, if you have any follow-up questions for Eric, or if you'd like to connect with him directly, his contact information will follow at the conclusion. Thanks everyone for watching.